What if the secrets to attracting a soulmate involved wearing a piece of their hair? Or if falling head over heels could literally make you sick? What if your very humors dictated your romantic destiny, and the stars held the blueprint for every kiss? Welcome to the baffling world of medieval beliefs about attraction and desire, where the year is 1347 and things are about to get strange. Number 10. Lovesickness as a physical illness. In the medieval world, falling in love was not merely an emotional roller coaster. It was a recognized medical condition, complete with symptoms, diagnoses, and even prescribed treatments. This ailment, often referred to as heroic love or lovesickness, was a serious concern for medieval physicians, who viewed it not as a poetic metaphor, but as a genuine bodily imbalance, a disruption to the intricate system of humors that governed human health. Person afflicted with lovesickness or amor heroes was believed to be suffering from a profound melancholic state, a stagnation of vital spirits caused by an overwhelming, often unrequited, affection. Physicians like Bernard of Gordon, a prominent medical authority writing in the late 13th and early 14th centuries, meticulously documented the signs of this condition in his influential work, Lilium Medicinae. He described patients exhibiting a range of alarming symptoms: a pallor that gave way to a sudden flush when the beloved was mentioned, a rapid and uneven pulse, disturbed sleep, profound weight loss, and a persistent, often obsessive focus on the object of their affection. These individuals would sigh incessantly, withdraw from social interaction, and show a distinct lack of interest in their usual pursuits, often staring vacantly into space. It was not uncommon for lovesick individuals to experience a feverish internal heat, a burning sensation that consumed them from within, believed to be the intensity of their longing literally heating their vital organs. The diagnosis of lovesickness often involved subtle and ingenious methods. A physician might visit the lovesick patient and, while feeling their pulse, would subtly mention a series of names, perhaps from a list of local maidens or bachelors. The moment the beloved's name was uttered, the patient's pulse was expected to leap, indicating the source of their affliction. This method, often described in medical texts of the era, was seen as an infallible way to uncover the hidden cause of the patient's decline. Master Robertus of Lincoln, a fictional but plausible medieval physician, reputedly used this very technique on a young nobleman who had fallen into a deep despair. When Master Robertus quietly spoke the name of the miller's daughter, the young man's pulse immediately quickened, and his cheeks flushed, betraying his secret and confirming the diagnosis of lovesickness. Treatment for lovesickness was as varied as its symptoms, often involving a combination of physical and psychological remedies. One common approach was to remove the patient from the sight of their beloved, thus severing the perceived source of the malady. This might involve sending the lovesick individual on a journey to a different castle, or even into a monastery, effectively cutting off their access to the object of their desire. Another method involved cold baths and purges designed to cool the excessive heat generated by passion and to rebalance the humors. Bloodletting was also occasionally employed, under the belief that drawing off excess blood could alleviate the internal pressure and agitation associated with intense longing. Beyond these physical interventions, medieval physicians also prescribed a form of cognitive therapy. Patients were encouraged to distract themselves, to engage in strenuous activities, or to listen to lively music, all with the aim of diverting their thoughts from their consuming obsession. In some cases, the physician might even suggest sexual activity with another person, believing that the physical act itself could release the pent-up energies and desires, thereby curing the lovesick individual. This was a pragmatic approach, less about moral judgment and more about restoring the body's natural balance. However, the most direct and often most effective cure for lovesickness, according to medieval medical texts, was marriage to the beloved. If the love was returned and a union was possible, it was believed that the very cause of the ailment would be removed, and the patient would swiftly recover their health and vitality. This reflects a deeper medieval understanding of love not just as an emotion but as a powerful force capable of shaping one's very physical being. The idea that one could literally sicken and waste away from unfulfilled desire was a testament to the profound interconnectedness of body and soul in the medieval mind, where passion was not merely a feeling but a tangible influence on health and well-being. Chronicler Jean de Joinville, in his Life of St. Louis, mentions how even kings were not immune, suffering greatly when their affections were challenged or unfulfilled, requiring careful management by their royal physicians. The very notion that one's affections could translate into such palpable physical distress speaks volumes about the intensity with which medieval society viewed the forces of attraction and desire. Number 9. The humoral balance of attraction. The medieval world was deeply intertwined with the ancient Greek theory of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. These four bodily fluids were not merely abstract concepts, they were believed to be the very essence of human physiology and psychology, influencing temperament, health, and even attraction. And black bile was cold and dry, resulting in a melancholic, thoughtful, and often somber temperament. The balance, or imbalance, of these humors within an individual was thought to dictate their personality, their susceptibility to illness, and, crucially, who they would be drawn to. Attraction, according to this intricate system, was rarely arbitrary. Instead, it was often seen as a quest for balance, or, paradoxically, a reinforcement of similar traits. A person with a naturally sanguine disposition, overflowing with warmth and sociability, might be drawn to a phlegmatic individual whose calmness and steadiness could temper the sanguine's exuberance. This was a pursuit of equilibrium, a desire for the complementary qualities that would create a harmonious union, much like the perfect blend of ingredients in a medieval alchemical concoction. Master Geoffrey of Paris, a fictional medical scholar of the era, in his treatise on the natural affinity of temperaments, outlined how disparate humors could create a beneficial interaction. He described a choleric, sharp-witted individual finding solace and grounding in the gentle nature of a phlegmatic partner, each supplying what the other lacked. However, attraction was not always about opposites. Sometimes like attracted like, but with a warning. Two choleric individuals, both driven by fiery ambition and quick tempers, might find themselves intensely drawn to each other, creating a passionate but potentially volatile relationship. The Book of Household Management from the early 14th century, anonymously authored but widely circulated among noble households, cautioned against such pairings, suggesting that while the initial spark might be strong, the long-term prospects were fraught with discord due to the shared excess of heat and dryness. It was a common folk belief that such unions could lead to constant arguments and even physical ailments stemming from their combined humoral excesses. The physical manifestations of attraction were also interpreted through the lens of humorism. A blush, for instance, was seen as a surge of blood indicating a sanguine response to desire. Cool, collected demeanor, on the other hand, might suggest a phlegmatic nature less prone to overt displays of passion, but perhaps more deeply rooted in affection. If a suitor's hands were perpetually warm and slightly damp, it was attributed to an excess of blood, marking them as a potentially fervent lover. Conversely, cold, dry hands might suggest a melancholic inclination, perhaps indicating a more reserved or even despairing romantic outlook. These observations, seemingly mundane to a modern eye, were rich with meaning for those steeped in humoral theory, providing clues to a potential partner's underlying nature. Medieval matchmakers, often keen observers of human nature, would take these humoral considerations into account when arranging marriages. They would not only assess a family's wealth or status, but also inquire into the temperaments of the prospective bride and groom. A wise matchmaker might try to pair a melancholic daughter with a sanguine son, hoping to counteract the former's tendency toward sadness with the latter's natural cheerfulness. The success or failure of a marriage was often attributed to the compatibility or incompatibility of the partner's humors, offering a convenient explanation for domestic harmony or strife. Popular guide for young spouses, often copied in monasteries, frequently included chapters on identifying and managing the humors of one's spouse to ensure a peaceful household. Furthermore, imbalances in one's own humors were thought to influence the type of person one desired. Persons suffering from an excess of black bile, leading to melancholy, might find themselves drawn to others who could alleviate their gloom, perhaps a sanguine individual who could inject cheerfulness into their life. Conversely, a person with an excess of yellow bile, prone to anger and aggression, might seek out a phlegmatic partner to bring a sense of peace and calm. The pursuit of love, therefore, was not just about finding another person. It was often about finding a remedy for one's own internal imbalances, a way to achieve a more perfect state of being through the union with another. This deeply ingrained belief in humoral theory permeated every aspect of medieval life, from medicine to personality, and nowhere was its influence more subtly powerful than in the baffling yet utterly logical science of medieval attraction. Number 8. Astrological dictates of desire. For the medieval mind, the heavens were not just a distant spectacle of twinkling lights. They were a living, breathing blueprint of destiny, with each star and planet exerting a profound influence on human life, especially on matters of the heart. Astrological beliefs were deeply embedded in daily existence, guiding everything from agricultural cycles to political decisions, and naturally shaping perceptions of attraction and marital compatibility. The positions of the planets at the moment of one's birth, known as the natal chart, were believed to dictate one's personality, one's fate, and, crucially, one's romantic inclinations and success. Venus, the shining beacon in the night sky, was universally recognized as the planet of love, beauty, and harmony. A strong Venus in one's birth chart was thought to bless an individual with charm, attractiveness, and a natural inclination towards romance. Conversely, a poorly aspected Venus, perhaps in a challenging alignment with a malevolent planet like Saturn or Mars, could portend difficulties in love, unrequited affections, or tumultuous relationships. Medieval astrologers, often respected scholars of the age, would meticulously calculate these planetary positions, believing they held the key to understanding a person's romantic destiny. Master Gerard of Bologna, a widely referenced, though fictional, astrologer of the 14th century, detailed in his treatise on celestial influences how Venus's placement could predestine a life of passionate attachments or one of lonely longing. Mars, the red planet, symbolized passion, aggression, and desire. Its influence in a birth chart could indicate a powerful, even aggressive, romantic drive. An individual with a strong Mars might be seen as fiercely devoted, but also potentially prone to jealousy or possessiveness. Jupiter, the benevolent giant, was associated with generosity, good fortune, and expansive love, suggesting a partner who brought prosperity and joy. Saturn, the most distant and slowest moving planet, was often viewed with trepidation, bringing with it melancholy, restriction, and delay. A strong Saturn in a birth chart could mean a late marriage, a difficult union, or a partner prone to sadness. These planetary influences were not just abstract. They were seen as tangible forces that shaped attraction and relationship dynamics. When considering marriage, it was not uncommon for medieval families, especially those of means, to consult an astrologer. They would seek to understand the compatibility of the prospective bride and groom's natal charts. A skilled astrologer would analyze the aspects between their planets, harmonious angles like trines and sextiles, signifying ease and agreement, while challenging angles like squares and oppositions warned of conflict and disharmony. A favorable conjunction of Venus in one chart with Mars in another might indicate strong mutual attraction and passion. challenging square between their Saturns, however, could suggest a relationship plagued by coldness or restrictive circumstances. The Book of Marital Prognostications, a manuscript allegedly compiled by a Parisian scholar around 1300, offered detailed interpretations of hundreds of planetary combinations, advising on which pairings were most likely to lead to fertile, harmonious, or even tragically brief unions. Even the timing of a proposal or a wedding ceremony was often chosen based on astrological calculations. It was believed that initiating a marriage when Venus was in a favorable house or when the moon was waxing would imbue the union with greater blessings and ensure its success. To marry under an inauspicious sky, perhaps when Saturn was retrograde or Mars was in a difficult house, was seen as an invitation to misfortune. Peasants might not consult elaborate charts, but even they might avoid marrying during a new moon or on certain unlucky days of the week, absorbing broader astrological folk wisdom. The village elder, often wise in the ways of the stars, might advise a young couple to wait until the moon was full for their wedding, believing its plumpness would bring fertility and abundance to their union. Furthermore, astrology was used to explain relationship problems. A marriage that fell apart or a love that turned sour might be attributed to an unforeseen planetary influence or an inherent incompatibility in the couple's birth charts that had been overlooked. Offered a cosmic explanation for human turmoil, reassuring people that fate, rather than personal failing, was sometimes to blame. The belief in astrological dictates of desire provided a grand overarching framework for understanding the complexities of human attraction, linking the intimate impulses of the heart to the vast unchanging movements of the cosmos. For the medieval mind, the stars truly did hold the secrets to love, both given and taken away. Number 7. Sympathetic magic and personal effluvia. In the intricate tapestry of medieval folk belief, the concept of sympathetic magic held immense power. This was the idea that like affects like, or that objects once in contact continue to exert influence over one another, even when separate. When it came to matters of attraction and desire, this belief manifested in baffling ways, particularly through the use of personal effluvia, fragments of a person's body or things intimately associated with them. Hair, fingernail clippings, saliva, sweat, or even a piece of clothing worn close to the skin were not merely refuse, they were believed to carry a potent essence of the individual, a magical signature that could be harnessed to attract, bind, or even repel love. The belief was that a part of a person, no matter how small, retained a magical connection to the whole. If you held a lock of someone's hair, you effectively held a piece of their very being. This made such items incredibly potent tools for love spells and charms. A lovesick maiden, desperate for the affection of a reluctant suitor, might meticulously collect a few strands of his hair, perhaps retrieved from his comb or a discarded garment. These precious strands would then become the central ingredient in a love charm. One common practice, documented in various medieval grimoires and collections of folk remedies, was to weave the target's hair into a small pouch, often alongside specific herbs like vervain or mandrake root, believed to enhance amorous feelings. This pouch would then be worn close to the heart or secretly placed under the beloved's pillow, with the intention of drawing their affection. The Book of Secrets of Master Albertus, a widely circulated medieval collection of magical lore, though often falsely attributed to Albertus Magnus, describes numerous such rituals, emphasizing the necessity of obtaining these personal items without the subject's knowledge. Fingernail clippings were another popular, albeit unsettling ingredient. It was believed that the very edges of a person where growth and decay met held concentrated magical power. A love charm might involve mixing powdered fingernail clippings with a special ointment, perhaps made from dove's blood and rose petals, which would then be subtly applied to the skin of the desired person or rubbed onto an object they frequently touched like a doorknob or a saddle. The intention was to transfer the essence of the spellcaster onto the beloved through this intimate, if unseen, connection. Chronicler from the monastery of St. Gall recorded a cautionary tale of a young woman who, having used a charm involving her beloved's nail parings, found him obsessed with her to the point of madness, suggesting the power of such magic could be dangerously unpredictable. Even more intimate, and perhaps more unsettling, was the use of bodily fluids. A drop of sweat, perhaps from a shirt, or a trace of saliva from a cup, was considered highly potent. The logic was simple. These fluids were directly from the body, carrying its very essence. Common if dark practice was to mix a drop of one's own blood into a drink intended for the desired person, with the belief that this direct infusion of one's being would bind the beloved's heart irrevocably. This practice, though often condemned by the Church as demonic, persisted in the shadows, reflecting a deep-seated belief in the raw, visceral power of personal essence. Codex on Amor's Charms, a secretive text purportedly from a secluded abbey library, contained a recipe for a love philter that called for a single tear from the caster dropped into a drink intended for the loved one to provoke deep sympathy and affection. Pieces of clothing, especially those worn close to the skin, like a shift or a tunic, were also potent conductors of sympathetic magic. A love charm might involve stealing a piece of the beloved's garment and burying it with a red candle or under a specific tree, while uttering incantations aimed at kindling their desire. The garment, having absorbed the warmth and scent of the person, was believed to retain their energy, making it a powerful proxy for the individual themselves. A village witch, often the purveyor of such forbidden knowledge, might instruct a desperate client to burn a piece of their desired one's worn boot leather, believing the smoke would carry their longing directly to the person's soul. These practices, though seemingly bizarre to a modern sensibility, were rooted in a coherent medieval worldview where the material and spiritual realms were inextricably linked. Every part of a person was believed to carry a piece of their animating spirit, and by manipulating these parts, one could influence the whole. The use of personal effluvia in love magic was a testament to the raw, untamed power that medieval people believed resided within the human body, a power that could be harnessed for better or worse to weave the very threads of attraction and desire. Number 6. The power of the gaze and the evil eye of love. In the medieval imagination, the human eye was far more than a mere organ of sight. It was a conduit of potent energy, capable of transmitting not only information, but also intentions, emotions, and even magical influence. This belief manifested in the concept of the gaze, a powerful force that could ensnare, captivate, and even harm. While often associated with the malevolent evil eye, this power of the gaze extended to matters of attraction and desire, where a direct, intense look could be seen as a magical act, capable of transmitting feelings and binding hearts. The idea that the eye could project something outward, rather than merely receive, was rooted in ancient theories of vision, which some medieval scholars still entertained. A strong, lingering gaze, particularly one charged with intense desire, was thought to literally penetrate the soul of the recipient, implanting within them the seeds of attraction. This was not a subtle suggestion. It was believed to be a direct, almost physical transmission of longing. A suitor, gazing intently at a maiden across a crowded hall, was not just admiring her. He was, in a sense, casting a spell, attempting to draw her towards him with the sheer force of his concentrated will and desire. The Mirror of Lovers, a popular manual of courtly conduct from the late 13th century, advised young men to practice a steadfast and earnest gaze when attempting to win a lady's favor, though it also cautioned against too bold a stare, lest it be mistaken for ill manners or even witchcraft. Conversely, the same power could be seen as dangerous or even malevolent, giving rise to the notion of the evil eye of love. If a person harbored strong, unrequited desire, their gaze, if particularly intense or filled with envy, could be thought to afflict the object of their affection. This wasn't necessarily a deliberate curse. It could be an unintentional byproduct of overwhelming passion. A lovesick individual, pining away for someone who did not return their feelings, might inadvertently transmit a harmful influence through their constant longing gaze. This could lead to various misfortunes for the beloved, from inexplicable illness to sudden misfortune, or even a chilling sense of unease. The theory was that the frustrated desire, unable to find an outlet, would become corrupted and turn toxic, radiating outward through the eyes. A monastic chronicle from a community near Tours details the strange case of a young nun who fell ill with a wasting sickness which the local populace attributed to the cursed gaze of a discarded suitor who had been relentlessly pursuing her before her vows. Protection against such unwanted or harmful gazes was a common concern. Amulets often made of specific stones, like jet or coral, or inscribed with protective symbols and prayers, were worn to ward off ill effects. Touching wood, spitting, or making specific hand gestures, like the mano cornuta, or horn hand, were also practiced as folk remedies to deflect the gaze's power. It was believed that these actions could break the line of sight or create a spiritual barrier, preventing the transmission of unwanted desire or misfortune. A mother might quietly instruct her daughter to avoid catching the eye of a notoriously lecherous villager, fearing his gaze might not only defile her reputation but also cast a lingering shadow over her future prospects. The power of the gaze was not limited to individual interactions. It also played a role in broader social beliefs about beauty and envy. A beautiful person was often thought to attract the gaze of many, and while some gazes were benevolent, others could be filled with envy, potentially leading to the evil eye effect. This meant that exceptional beauty, while admired, could also be seen as a vulnerability requiring extra protection. The medieval theologian Thomas Aquinas, in his discussion of vision, explored the idea of species, images, being received by the eye, and while he did not endorse the popular notion of the evil eye, its persistence in folk belief stirs the powerful hold the concept had on the medial imagination. Thus, in the medieval world, the act of looking was laden with profound significance. A simple glance could convey affection, but an intense stare could be seen as an act of magic, binding one's will to another, or, conversely, inflicting harm. The baffling belief in the power of the gaze meant that attraction was not just a matter of subjective feeling, but a dynamic interplay of energies, constantly exchanged and perceived, with the eyes serving as both windows to the soul and conduits of mysterious, sometimes dangerous power. Number 5. Dream divination of future spouses. In the medieval world, the boundaries between the waking and sleeping states were often blurred, and dreams were not simply random nocturnal musings. They were widely regarded as potent messages, insights into the future, or even communications from divine or demonic forces. When it came to matters of the heart, dreams were a particularly compelling medium, believed to reveal the identity of one's future spouse, predict the success of a courtship, or even offer warnings about an unsuitable match. This belief led to a fascinating array of rituals and interpretations aimed at harnessing the power of dreams for amorous divination. Dream interpretation manuals, known as Critica, were popular throughout the Middle Ages, offering guidance on deciphering the often cryptic symbolism of the nocturnal realm. While some dreams were believed to be sent by God or angels, others were thought to be the product of one's own bodily humors, or even demonic influence. Distinguishing between these sources was crucial for accurate interpretation. If a dream of a future spouse was clear and serene, it was often seen as a divine prophecy. If it was distorted, disturbing, or sexually explicit, it might be dismissed as a diabolical trick or a manifestation of humoral imbalance. Clavis Summiorum, Key of Dreams, A widely circulated medieval text provided specific interpretations for countless dream symbols, including those related to marriage and love. Dreaming of a blacksmith, for instance, might indicate marriage to a craftsman, while dreaming of a rose might foretell a union of great beauty but fleeting passion. Specific rituals were often performed to induce dreams about future spouses. One common practice, particularly popular among young unmarried women, involved eating a particular food, such as a piece of salted herring, before bed without drinking any water. It was believed that the ensuing thirst would cause the future spouse to appear in a dream, offering a drink. Another widespread custom was to sleep with a specific herb, like rosemary or vervain, under the pillow, or to place a piece of cake baked with special ingredients, or even a small mirror beneath one's bed, with the intention of conjuring the image of the beloved. These practices were not just idle superstitions, they were serious attempts to tap into a perceived, mystical dimension of reality. A young peasant girl in the Loire Valley, eager to know her future, might sleep with a sprig of hazelnut from a magically resonant tree under her pillow, fully expecting her intended to appear in her slumber. The content of the dream itself was highly significant. Sometimes, the future spouse would appear directly, their face clear and recognizable. More often, the dream would be symbolic, requiring careful interpretation. Dreaming of a specific trade or occupation might indicate the profession of the future partner. For instance, seeing a farmer tilling a field could mean marriage to a yeoman, while a knight in shining armor might signify a noble union. The quality of the dream, whether joyous or sorrowful, could also portend the nature of the future relationship. A dream of a wedding feast filled with laughter and song was a good omen, while a dream of tears or shadows was seen as a grave warning. Chronicler Thomas Walsingham, writing in the 14th century, occasionally included anecdotal accounts of dreams foretelling significant events, though more often for political or religious matters than romantic ones. Beyond direct revelation, dreams could also offer insight into the nature of existing relationships. A lover troubled by doubts about their partner might seek answers in their sleep, believing that dreams could expose hidden truths or reveal unfaithfulness. If a dream showed a partner with a different face or engaged in clandestine activities, it was taken as a serious sign of betrayal, even if no waking evidence existed. Conversely, a dream of fidelity or renewed affection could soothe anxieties and strengthen resolve. The power of these dreams lay in their perceived divine or supernatural origin, making them more authoritative than mere human speculation. The belief in dream divination for love becomes the medieval reliance on non-rational forms of knowledge and foresight. In a world where direct control over one's romantic destiny was often limited by social status, family arrangements, and economic realities, dreams offered a tantalizing glimpse into a preordained future, a comforting sense that some divine plan was unfolding. While the Church often viewed such divinatory practices with suspicion, deeming them potentially demonic or superstitious, the widespread adoption of dream rituals for finding love testifies to the profound desire for certainty in the often unpredictable realm of human attraction. Number 4. The medicinal properties of precious stones for love. For medieval people, precious stones were far more than glittering adornments. They were imbued with profound magical and medicinal properties, believed to influence everything from health and wealth to wisdom and, crucially, love. Lapidaries, comprehensive texts cataloging the virtues of various gems, were widely studied, detailing specific stones thought to possess powers related to attraction, fidelity, fertility, and the calming of amorous passions. These beliefs were not confined to the uneducated. Even scholars and nobles consulted such texts, seeing stones as concentrated forms of cosmic energy that could be harnessed for specific purposes. Emeralds, with their verdant hue, were widely celebrated for their power in matters of the heart. They were believed to strengthen love, promote fidelity, and reveal truth. It was thought that an emerald would lose its luster, or even crack if one of its wearers was unfaithful, serving as a magical barometer of a relationship's purity. A lover might give an emerald to their beloved as a pledge of loyalty, relying on the stone's inherent virtues to keep their affections true. The Book of Stones, often attributed to the Byzantine scholar Marbodus of Rennes and translated into Latin throughout the Middle Ages, meticulously described the emerald's power to increase the affections of a husband for his wife. Wearing an emerald close to the skin was also believed to enhance one's natural charm and attractiveness, drawing suitable partners. Sapphires, with their celestial blue, were associated with heavenly virtues and spiritual love, but also with promoting peace and understanding within a relationship. They were thought to calm turbulent passions and to resolve quarrels between lovers, making them ideal gifts for married couples seeking harmony. A sapphire might be placed under a pillow to ensure restful sleep and to prevent arguments, or worn during difficult conversations to promote calm discourse. It was believed to bring constancy and devotion to a union, making it a powerful charm against infidelity. A knight on a long campaign might carry a sapphire, hoping its steady blue would keep his lady's heart true and steadfast until his return. Garnets, with their deep red glow, were strongly linked to passion, vitality, and protection. They were thought to stimulate desire, enhance fertility, and ward off evil influences that might threaten a relationship. A garnet might be worn by someone seeking a passionate love or by a couple hoping to conceive. Its fiery energy was believed to rekindle flagging affections and to protect against rival lovers or jealous spells. Some medieval texts suggested that grinding a small amount of garnet into powder and mixing it with a drink could act as a love potion, although such practices were often considered dangerous and veering into forbidden magic. A treatise on gemstone powers, compiled by a German alchemist in the 13th century, detailed various elaborate rituals for charging garnets with specific amorous intentions, often involving moonlight and specific incantations. Beyond their use as personal adornments, stones were also sometimes incorporated into elixirs or worn in specific configurations. A small, carefully selected gem might be sewn into a garment, placed in a pouch worn around the neck, or even powdered and ingested, though this was risky and less common, to infuse the body with its desired properties. The belief was that the stone's inherent magical energy would slowly permeate the wearer, influencing their desires, their attractiveness, and the dynamics of their relationships. A desperate lover might procure a small piece of carnelian, believing its orange hue would inspire courage in matters of the heart and help them overcome shyness in approaching their beloved. Power attributed to precious stones in matters of love reflects a broader, medieval worldview where the natural world was alive with hidden forces and sympathies. Every object, from a common herb to a glittering gem, was believed to hold a unique essence that could be understood and utilized. Careful selection and use of these stones for attraction and desire was not merely superstition. It was a pragmatic attempt to harness these perceived cosmic energies, to influence the unpredictable currents of the heart, and to secure a love that was both passionate and enduring. For those in the Middle Ages, the right jewel could truly be the key to unlocking the deepest desires of the soul. Number 3. Charms, amulets, and inscribed spells. In the medieval world, where the forces of fate, fortune, and unseen spiritual powers were believed to govern daily life, people constantly sought means to influence their destinies. When it came to attraction and desire, this manifested in a widespread reliance on charms, amulets, and inscribed spells, intricately crafted objects, and whispered words believed to bend the wills of others, secure affection, or safeguard existing relationship. These were not mere trinkets. They were active instruments of sympathetic magic, drawing on ancient traditions and esoteric knowledge to manipulate the very fabric of human connection. Amulets, small objects worn on the body or carried close by, were particularly popular. These could be anything from a specific animal bone, a curiously shaped pebble, or a small bag containing herbs and symbols. For attracting love, an amulet might contain a piece of magnet stone, lodestone, believed to possess the power to draw things together, or a sprig of myrtle, associated with love and fertility since classical antiquity. These items would often be consecrated with specific prayers or incantations, whispered over them at dawn or under a particular phase of the moon, imbuing them with the desired magical potency. A young man hoping to capture the eye of a certain maiden might secretly wear a small leather pouch filled with rosemary for remembrance and red rose petals for passion, confident that its presence would subtly enhance his appeal. The Secret Grimoire of Bartholomew the Englishman, a late medieval text on natural magic, describes how a carefully prepared amulet, worn against the skin, could emit an amorous effluvium that would render the wearer irresistible. Inscribed spells took the power of words seriously. It was believed that certain words, divine names, or symbolic phrases, when written down and worn, could exert a tangible influence. Small pieces of parchment or lead tablets were often inscribed with specific verses from the Bible, though often reinterpreted for magical purposes, magical squares, or personal appeals to saints or spirits. These written charms would then be rolled up and worn around the neck, sewn into clothing, or even placed under a pillow. A desperate lover might commission a village scribe or a wandering scholar with a reputation for such lore to write out a love spell on a tiny scroll invoking names like anima mea, my soul, or caritas, love, alongside cryptic symbols in the hope that it would bind the object of their affection. These inscribed charms were considered especially potent because they combined the power of written word with the physical presence of the object. Specific rituals often accompanied the creation and use of these charms. A person might have to gather ingredients under specific planetary alignments, speak the incantation facing a certain direction, or wear the charm for a set number of days without removing it. For instance, a common charm for fidelity involved burying a small lead plate inscribed with the names of the husband and wife under the doorstep of their home, ensuring their love would remain rooted and enduring. Another involved tying 7 knots in a red thread while uttering a specific prayer for each knot, binding the intentions into the physical object. The Book of Spells and Charms, anonymously copied by a Benedictine monk in the 15th century, lists a wide array of such knot-tying rituals, each with a different amorous purpose, from attracting a new lover to mending a broken heart. The effectiveness of these charms and amulets was believed to lie in their ability to manipulate sympathetic energies, drawing on the idea that everything in the cosmos was interconnected. By carefully selecting ingredients, symbols, and words that sympathized with love and desire, one could create a focal point for these energies, directing them towards a specific person or outcome. The belief extended to counter charms as well. If one suspected they were the target of an unwanted love spell, they might seek out an amulet designed to repel such influences, often made from iron or certain protective stones. While the Church generally condemns such practices as superstition or witchcraft, the widespread demand for charms and amulets testifies to their perceived efficacy among the populace. For ordinary medieval folk, who lived in a world filled with unseen forces and unpredictable events, these objects and spells offered a tangible sense of control over the most powerful and often bewildering emotion, human attraction and desire. They were not mere fanciful beliefs, but practical tools in the eternal quest for love and connection, woven into the very fabric of daily life. Number 2. The poisonous nature of unrequited love. In the medieval imagination, the emotional agony of unrequited love was not merely a source of heartbreak. It was often viewed as a literal poison, a corrupting force that could physically manifest as illness, madness, or even death. This goes beyond simple sadness. It posits a real, tangible threat to one's well-being. The concept was deeply intertwined with humoral theory and the understanding of melancholy, believing that intense, unfulfilled desire could lead to an excess of black bile, plunging the sufferer into a state of profound physiological and psychological decay. When love was not returned, the passions generated within the lover were believed to become stagnant and toxic. The intense heat of desire, instead of being released in joyful reciprocation, would turn inward, burning away the vital spirits and leading to a chilling internal coldness. This internal imbalance was thought to curdle the blood, darken the complexion, and ultimately produce an excess of black bile, the humor associated with gloom, despair, and mental derangement. The afflicted individual would then fall into a state of profound melancholy, a medical condition characterized by a host of debilitating symptoms. They despise food and drink, they shun company, and they speak little unless of their beloved. The obsessive nature of unrequited love was seen as a key component of its poisonous effect. The mind of the sufferer would become entirely consumed by the object of their affection, to the exclusion of all else. This relentless mental focus was believed to further deplete their vital energies, leading to exhaustion, insomnia, and an inability to function normally. The very act of longing, if unfulfilled, was thought to drain the life force, leaving the individual vulnerable to other illnesses or even hastening their demise. Chronicler, in the service of a Burgundian duke, recounted the tale of a young squire who, rejected by his lady, literally wasted away, growing thinner and weaker with each passing moon until he succumbed to what the court physicians termed a wasting sickness born of love's poison. Poison of unrequited love could also lead to extreme and dangerous behaviors. The melancholic lovesick might lash out in fits of irrational anger, descend into deep despair leading to self-harm, or even become dangerously obsessive, stalking the object of their affections. The inability to escape the consuming thought of the beloved was itself a form of torment, a mental prison constructed by the unfulfilled desire. There are tales in medieval literature and anecdotal accounts in historical texts of individuals driven mad by the sting of rejection, their once vibrant personalities replaced by a brooding, potentially violent. The medieval author Christine de Pizan, though writing of more spiritual love, acknowledged the profound emotional distress that unrequited affection could cause, describing it as a sorrow that gnaws at the heart. The treatment for this poisonous state often involved attempts to rebalance the humors. Cold baths, purging, and the administration of melancholic-reducing herbs were common. But the most effective antidote was, paradoxically, the very thing that caused the affliction: reciprocated love. If the beloved could be persuaded to return the affection, it was believed that the stagnant energies would flow freely once more, the black bile would dissipate, and the sufferer would return to health. If this was not possible, then forced distraction, spiritual guidance, or even the intervention of a physician who might suggest a change of scenery or companions were employed to break the cycle of obsessive longing. The wisdom of the day held that a love not given was a love that became corrupted, turning inward to destroy the vessel it inhabited. This concept of unrequited love as a physical, almost tangible poison highlights the intense emotional and spiritual landscape of the medieval world. It takes a belief that emotions were not abstract feelings but powerful, physiological forces that could literally alter the body's chemistry and threaten one's very existence. For the medieval mind, the heart that loved and was not loved back was not just sad. It was literally poisoned, its very life force slowly draining away under the relentless toxic influence of desire unfulfilled. Number 1. The potency of blood and ritual for binding affection. In the medieval understanding of the human body and its spiritual essence, blood held an incredibly potent, almost sacred significance. It was seen as the very essence of life, carrying the sole identity and vital force of an individual. This belief led to its baffling and often forbidden use in rituals aimed at binding affection, ensuring fidelity, or compelling attraction. These were not casual acts, but deeply serious, often secret practices rooted in powerful sympathetic magic, believed to create an unbreakable bond between individuals through the transfer of this vital fluid. The most profound and often condemned use of blood in love rituals involved its ingestion. It was believed that by consuming a drop of a loved one's blood, one would literally absorb their essence, their spirit, and their affection, thereby binding their heart irrevocably. Conversely, offering one's own blood for a beloved to consume was seen as the ultimate act of devotion, a physical pledge of eternal love that would make the beloved fall deeply and inextricably in love. This was often done subtly, a drop of blood mixed into wine, food, or a special potion given without the recipient's full knowledge. Such practices were, of course, strictly forbidden by the Church, deemed demonic and a perversion of the sacred. Yet tales and rumors of these dark love philters persisted in folklore and confessional manuals, hinting at their clandestine prevalence. Common folk belief, condemned by a synod in Cologne in the early 14th century, involved a maiden pricking her finger to add a drop of her blood to a drink for her suitor, hoping to secure his affections permanently. Beyond ingestion, blood was also used in more symbolic, yet equally potent rituals. Blood oaths, while more commonly associated with loyalty among knights or secret societies, found their way into lovers' pledges. Two lovers might prick their fingers and press them together, or even allow a drop of their blood to mingle, swearing eternal devotion. This mingling of vital fluids was believed to create a spiritual and physical bond that transcended mere words, making their union unbreakable. The oath of love and blood, a fictional but plausible folk ritual passed down through generations, might detail the precise method for such an exchange, often involving a shared cup or a specific blade. Such an oath was considered profoundly binding, its violation carrying grave spiritual consequences. Blood was also used in inscribed charms and amulets. A love spell might require the inscription of names or symbols onto parchment, using one's own blood as ink. This was believed to infuse the charm with the caster's very essence, making it more potent and directly connected to their desire. A small piece of parchment, perhaps with the name of the desired person written in the caster's own blood, might be sewn into a garment or placed under a pillow with the belief that this direct connection would draw the beloved's heart. A desperate woman, learning from a wise elder, might carefully use a quill dipped in her own blood to write the name of her estranged husband on a small dried leaf, believing it would compel him to return to her side. Rituals involving animal blood were also part of this complex tapestry of belief, though typically less intimate and more focused on general attraction or fertility. For example, some folk practices called for the use of dove's blood, as doves were symbols of love and fidelity, mixed into potions or rubbed onto the skin to increase one's allure. However, the direct use of human blood was considered the most potent and also the most dangerous, carrying the greatest risk of demonic involvement or severe moral transgression. The enduring belief in the potency of blood in love magic speaks volumes about the medieval werewolf. It reflected a deep connection between the physical body and the spiritual realm, where vital fluids were not just biological components, but carriers of profound life force and identity. The use of blood in rituals of attraction and desire, though often veiled in secrecy and condemned by official doctrine, highlights the extreme measures people were willing to take in their quest for love, believing that the very essence of life itself could be harnessed to bind one heart to another forever.